Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Killjoy Guide, the left feminist podcast for the 99%. I'm your host, Killjoy Meg, and welcome to the show. Today, we're going to look at a new up-and-coming social media service that prides itself on your privacy and security. So I'm going to be talking to one of the people from Pancake. So Pancake is that up-and-coming social media platform that I was talking about, and today we're going to be talking to Sean O'Brien. Sean O'Brien is the privacy and security advisor for Pancake. He's also been a visiting lecturer at Yale Law School and the founder of Yale Privacy Lab. So he's going to come on and talk to us all about Pancake. Please give a warm Killjoy welcome to Sean O'Brien. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Great to be here.
Okay, so what exactly, let's just start off right off the bat. What is Pancake?
Sure. So Pancake is a next generation social media app. It's a short messaging service, so similar to something like Twitter, but we aim to be much, much better.
Okay,
and when I
like
say that, oh yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I don't like to put us necessarily in the mirror against all these terrible big tech networks, but obviously folks are very dissatisfied with what they're using. So we aim to actually, be much more private, and well, I'll get into that probably in a little more detail in a bit. Be very serious about security, be very serious about respecting our users. So yeah, it is also going to be fun, which I think is the important thing. We've thought through a lot of very, cool gamification features that are encouraging positive interaction, which is something that's so missing from social media these days.
Oh, I like the sound of that. I like positivity. I'm a very positive person, despite my nickname. I don't always like to kill joy. I do like joy, but
sure.
All right. So Pancake is a competitor to Twitter and Facebook.
Yes. We're going to be a replacement, is the way I like to put it.
Like that.
Yeah. So basically, it uses the technology blockchain, and I'm sure your audience and you have heard that word used a lot in many different contexts. For us, the main impetus for using blockchain technology is because it's a ledger, right? It's a record of everything that occurs in the network. And that way we can have real verifiability behind moderation choices. You can see in real time that the things you're saying and sending and posting are actually being recorded, that your number of followers is actually the number of followers that you have. And then therefore, the manipulation of the network, the kinds of things that you see now where people's followers are getting removed or, et cetera, all this shadow banning stuff. That can't happen. So it's a big part of our promise to the users. Again, this respect thing, right? We really want to make sure that people in our network feel like it's a community and we care for them. And one of the ways we do that is by showing them very transparently, hey, this is how everything's functioning. So. Okay,
cool. So let me bring up your website. Just while I'm doing that, because I'm unfamiliar with what exactly blockchain is. What is blockchain?
So in this context, and obviously, again, your audience has probably heard about it, in relation to Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies of some kind. In this context, you should just think of it as like a ledger or like a spreadsheet. And what happens is basically each record that's added to that ledger, to that record, it is built upon the previous entry. So it has cryptographic verification built in. That's where the crypto part comes in, right? And that means you can actually take this record and you can decentralize it. You can spread it out amongst many different computers, many different owners of those computers, and they can have a copy of that record, and you can still build upon it without having to have a central repository.
Interesting.
Yeah, so for us also, that's a big part of one of our goals, which is, censorship resistance, right? We want to have a really serious decentralized structure. That way, we hope that folks who are in war-torn parts of the world and, places where there's an internet shutdown and so on and so forth, we can come up with ways, we can have allies who can host for us core parts of the network, mirrored versions of pieces of the network, and so on and so forth, so that people can still access. And really, the goal, right? People need to be able to communicate. People need to be able to share information freely. So for us, blockchain is that. It's a decentralized, verifiable record that's shared between different parts of the network.
Okay, so in decentralizing it, does that mean that is more how is that more security versus like if Twitter has it all in like one server?
So the network model is more about governance and control, right?
Okay.
In the case of something like Twitter, obviously having a centralized, mega database where you're building all these data profiles on people and so on, that gives Twitter an enormous amount of power. And again, it also lets them make sure that their activities are opaque, right? They don't have to have the kind of transparency we will have built in by design, right? So that's really where the model is important. Also, of course, Twitter is working very closely with different governments about, what kind of content is okay to publish and what kind of content isn't. And decentralized models, are hopefully very resistant to that sort of thing. And we want to be very resistant to that sort of thing. So having our stuff spread out across multiple different machines, multiple different server racks, et cetera, with these allies, as I said, is a really important thing. And anybody who participates in Pancake will be able to pull a full copy of the blockchain record if they want to, and they can actually just see what's in it. So that's basically the difference there. Where privacy and security is concerned, that's really a different thing. And it's sort of the flip side of the coin, right? We have this transparency. We want to have this respect and this anti-censorship, piece where you can see the posts that go through the network. But what we don't want at Pancake is we don't want to have the data of our users. We don't even want something which is just normally considered shareable with these other social media networks, like a phone number or an email address. We want to make sure that that data stays on the user's computer. And in this way, we can also have a network that's really decentralized, really strongly peer-to-peer, where the only thing that is identifiable about the user is, of course, what the user decides to share, right? If they decide to put information in their profile and so on, and also their handle, their user handle. So, Killjoy or whatever you decide to use, I hope you come use the network. So basically, yeah, we're trying to really think seriously about the topology, so to speak. And I know that sounds very technical, but basically building in privacy by design, strong security at the root of it, strong decentralization, strong peer-to-peer structure. This isn't just a clone of a Twitter or another sort of alternative social network. We're really thinking seriously about the structure and making sure that we can be resilient. And also to scale this thing up. We really want to get mainstream users. We really don't want to be some alternative in some dark corner of the internet. We want to be on my grandmother's computer and, et cetera, et cetera. So.
I like the sound of all of that. And I love your message, even in your, just in your motto here, your little subtext, that we're talking about liberation. So talk liberation. So what exactly is that ethos of talk liberation?
Sure. So the people behind Pancake, including myself, are very serious about freedom of information. And many of them are freedom of information activists. So you'll see that with many of our endorsers and so on. it is a very serious principle that I take strongly, that free flow of information is important for democracy, for autonomy, for really criticizing the world around you and changing it, and creating hopefully a better world. So that sort of another world is possible kind of ethos, I think, is at the root of it. We, of course, don't want to, discourage people who are apolitical, so to speak, and be like, because we do think we want to have voices across a wide spectrum of thought, but also, of course, mainstream folks who just want to get their, photos of their cats out and so on and so forth. So, but that's part of what makes the internet great too, right? This idea that we have to have these polarized sort of ultra, I don't know, like draconian enforcement of speech and so on. That's a real problem. The internet, as we grew up with, I think, was very much more open. And part of the reason it was more open was both because it had not yet been monetized as an advertising surveillance network.
Very true.
Yeah. And it also, it had not yet taken on the power that it now has. There's a recognition on the part of the powerful, I think, that obviously these tools, these networks are extremely, you can do amazing or horrible things with them. And there's been a clampdown and a push for control, at least over the last decade, probably a little longer. So in many ways, what we want to do with Pancake is try to bring back something that's a bit more like the earlier spirit of the internet. And we want to make it as resilient as possible to pressure from the outside. So again, that's why we're building in a lot of the features at the core of the network that we're building. So.
Yeah, and I am liking everything that I'm hearing so far. Words like liberation, decentralizing. Those are all words that I like. And I definitely appreciate the fact that this is about anti-censorship, and just as you said, they are trying to crack down more and more on, the things that we're trying to say, whether it's from the left or from the right. And we're seeing it more and more. And they're, companies like Facebook, Twitter, they're trying to control not only the things that we're saying, but also the things that we're seeing as well. And one of the things that I really liked about when I was looking at your website was this part right here, where you say no timeline manipulation. So how is that possible without some sort of algorithm?
So it's kind of funny, right? Because we're in such a world of manipulation. It's hard to think like, well, how can we do this differently? But basically, there's a few ways that we accomplish this just by having a simpler model, right? First off, there are no advertisements at all whatsoever, right? So that takes out a big part of the problem with these other social networks, with botnets that, are throwing ads on people's timelines, with political campaigns that are just shoving money into some farm somewhere where they just send out, all these fake users, and they're boosting ads, and the ads are showing, et cetera, et cetera. All that stuff we don't have to worry about. So the ads aren't there. The other thing is that the basic structure is an opt-in structure. So you see the content of the folks that you are following. You can also see content that you search for, right? And so this is sort of that autonomy thing, right? If you search for cats, you're going to see stuff about cats. We also are going to have, trends. And I mean like real trends, not stuff that's like fake AI manipulated. Yeah, exactly. So if people are talking about something and you click on, the hashtag for it, you're going to see the content there. But that sort of, choice of browsing through the network is, again, it's a principle that has sort of disappeared under all these layers of manipulation that we're now used to. We want to make sure that we have a timeline that is respectful of the user, shows the user what they actually want to see, allows them to build community. Now, one of the criticisms, of course, that in some other, social networks that have tried to get out of this sort of box that the Twitters and the Facebooks put people in, some of these other social networks have also an opt-in model of one kind or another. And one of the things that I hear is, well, how am I going to find my friends? How am I going to find content that's relevant to me? Am I going to end up in sort of a desert when I get out there and not know how to find anybody, right? So we've thought very seriously about that too. We have, for example, features like a cup quake. And a cup quake allows you to promote one user per day. So I could promote you when you come into the user and say, hey, check out Killjoy's account. And that pre-formatted message shows up in your timeline and can be amplified to all of your followers. So it's a lot like when you see, which you don't see much anymore, but when people used to come into Twitter, somebody might say, hey, Sean's got awesome content. Why don't you follow Sean? And that's basically what a cupquake does. The other thing that we're doing, which is pretty cool, is we have something called a thunderquake, and that allows users to send an announcement to every single user who follows them. So those followers can decide to opt in to also amplify that message. This, again, is about leveling the playing field, right? Taking a feature which has gotten out of control in a negative direction and which is gameable by big money, big corporations, government influence, and so on these other platforms, taking that and giving it back to the hands of the average user and really leveling the playing field. So, over the course of a week, I earn a Thunderquake point that allows me to gift a thunderquake to someone. Let's say it's an activist organization that I really want to have the ability to reach people. Then they can send out a message that says, hey, on Tuesday, we're going to send out this message that says this about, I don't know, Medicare for all or whatever the issue is. And then the followers can decide, hey, I want to opt in to also amplifying this message. What we're calling amplification is basically like what would be a retweet in Twitter. And then that message goes out. So, if you're a Coca-Cola joining the network, you have the same power as a Sean joining the network, right? Or a Killjoy or whatever. And that's the idea. We want to kind of level that playing field while still kind of, we have algorithms, right? We have ways that people can reach each other, but we're not doing all the nasty stuff. We're very serious also about not having artificial intelligence, doing things like auto moderation and all that stuff, or timeline manipulation, obviously. And partially that's because it doesn't really work very well. It causes all kinds of problems with false positives and everything else. And partially because that not working very well is extremely biased, and that we take those kinds of things very seriously.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely know that there is quite a lot of bias, because algorithms are not just created out of nowhere. People create the algorithms, and a lot of those biases. And there are great books about this out there, guys, including about the internet and the racial bias and other biases on the internet that are created through these algorithms. So I highly recommend that you check out some of those books. I'll put a couple links in the description below. But so let's go into a little bit of these innovations that you guys have. So first you have the Pancakes, which is your curation tool for very swiftly compile select messages from multiple sources into a single link. So what exactly does that mean, to compile messages from multiple sources?
So basically, you're familiar, I'm sure, with building threads, right? In a network, right? So Pancake's like a cooler version of a thread. Basically, it was just a series of clicks, click, click, click. You select a few messages that are significant to you, link them all together, and then you serve that up as a link to your followers, or share it via email, or post it in another social network, right? And this allows you to bundle Quakes, which is what we call our short messages, together in a stack, which is where the pancake analogy comes from.
Okay.
So you've got your stack of Quakes, or stack of Quakes, which we call a Panquake, I guess. And then you share that with people. And that can be like, it can also include, Quakes from other people. Maybe you're commenting on a news story, so that's included in there. Maybe it's, some past Quake that you sent 5 years ago, and you're like, aha, see, I was right. Whatever it is. And you can build on those. So we hope it's going to be a tool for folks who are like constantly doing threads or trying to use these mediums in ways that really build a story or, talk about an issue. Again, we really think activists are going to be psyched about these kinds of features. And because we have folks who come from the world of activism, and that's not the only, we've got a lot of influences, but we have a lot of folks who've done real world serious campaigning. They realize how important this kind of amplification can be. And Pancakes is going to be a really cool tool for that. So
very cool. So in other words, so if I and my fellow members of Fred Hampton Leftists, the other group I'm a part of, we decided, okay, we want to create a Panquake of our specific links or some things that we've been saying. I could curate it all together and set it as a single link.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh, that's very interesting. I like that.
You have a protest, you have an event, right? And this allows you to sort of build that together. You can have, Quakes from other people who attended. That could be linked to some video content they have off on some other platform. And then you can also build on it, right? So if you need to change that or swap it out, you can still do that. So I guess in that way, it's like taking the microblogging concept and just making sure that you can have something static and shareable in that one link that's really tells the whole story, let's say.
Very interesting. Then, so we already talked about the Thunder Quakes, which is an altruistic way of amplifying certain people, certain tools, certain groups. Then go a little bit more into the Cupquake.
Sure. So again, that's primarily to promote a user. You want to create a pre-formatted message and you want to say, hey, this user is awesome. Check out their stuff. So it's pretty simple. And it should just be one simple click on the profile of that user. Again, and I should just make sure I always have a caveat with this, because folks who are familiar with this kind of gamification in video games or, other areas, we only allow these things to be accrued in a very slow sort of way. So a Cupquake is one user per day. A Thunderquake can only be accrued over the course of doing a certain number of actions. So I think right now the shortest you could do it is like a week, maybe a little less. So we don't want this to be also, and we've thought through these kinds of rules, we don't want this to be, a way that somebody sort of, I don't know, gets a million Thunderquakes or a million Cupquakes and starts just spamming everybody, right? Leveling the playing field is really important.
Could you combine some of these innovations, put together like a Panquake with a Cupquake? And when you're promoting that user, have a thread of their content?
Yeah, so I don't know if we've thought through that feature yet. That's something that's really good feedback. I think right now, as it's designed, and obviously we're still working on these parts of the network, I think a Cupquake is basically just a Quake as far as the record goes. So I believe you would be able to bundle it as part of a Panquake. But I will check with some of our others, especially the folks working on the front end, about that. If not, it sounds like a good idea. So, hey.
Hey, you're welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
I'll be waiting for my check. Thank you.
Yeah, right?
Okay. And then what is a Lovequake?
Okay, so Lovequake allows you to automatically send all content from an account, like someone you follow, even when you're offline or you're sleeping. So a lot of the stuff that happens, right, especially, and I keep harping on Twitter, but we are a blogging service. So it is similar. But Twitter, you end up opening a million tabs. You end up clicking on somebody's profile, browsing to their profile just to retweet something, and it becomes this slavish thing where you're doing this every morning or every afternoon or whatever. So basically, a Love Quake would allow you to automatically do that. So if you trust an account like Fred Hampton Left, right, then you can just automatically amplify their content whenever they send it. So pretty simple there, but it just goes to show how these simple features are just not there in these other networks. So,
All right. So going in a different direction on that, though, is there a way to also turn that off? And for instance, that like even though you love that account, maybe they say something that you think is a little problematic. Can you not send that particular Quake?
So right now it's basically a toggle. We've thought about it as sort of like a heart icon or something similar where you toggle it on, toggle it off. Okay. It may be as we keep going that we put more fine-grained settings in where it's like, okay, I amplify for this 24-hour period or something like that. But yeah, you can totally turn it off, of course.
Okay, cool. So let's again look at some of the features here. So we already talked about the fact that this is a short messaging service, much like Twitter or Facebook, but definitely trying to replace those other social media platforms with something more user-friendly. I'm assuming user-friendly, but definitely something that is much more transparent and sorry, lost my train of thought for a second. Much more transparent and much more about user privacy and engagement.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're just taking, we're doing the things that are not that hard to do for these big networks, which are ultra powerful and so on. We're doing it in sort of a very grassroots, decentralized way, and we're going to build something better. So yeah, it means all those things. It means better privacy, better security, and we're really serious about that. But it also means, just not doing the bad things, which is like, actually not that hard, So, deciding not to manipulate someone's timeline shouldn't be some huge engineering decision. In fact, it makes our life much easier from an engineering perspective, right? But these other networks are doing that day in, day out all the time. So,
yes. So, okay, so we have short messaging service, no timeline manipulation, which I love to hear, a custom blockchain, transparent moderation, no advertising fee or advertising free. Sorry. So no advertising, guys. No annoying ads on your timeline. No shadow bans, which also is a good thing to hear because I know that's such a big problem on platforms like Facebook, like Twitter, that if they don't like the content that you're writing, they will find a way to manipulate it so that you're not getting seen.
Yeah, and it can happen in ways that are not even like, again, shadow banning, but it can also be these other weird things like your follower count just like falls, And
I know I have friends who have had that happen to them.
Yeah. Oh, it's happened to me. It's happened to pretty much everybody I talk to these days, or at least folks, if you're reaching people, especially if you have a political message or really a strong message of any kind, you're going to have seen this behavior, basically.
Absolutely. So, and then this is another one that I love. No selling of user data. That is a huge issue that I am very happy to see here. No selling of user data.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want the data in the first place, right? So, and that's a little bit to protect us and very much to protect you, right? If you don't have data profiles, you don't have to worry about giving those over to some shady government entity, right? So it's very much the same principle that you might see with some products like VPNs and so on, where they're trying not to collect logs, trying not to collect this information. Since we have the benefit of building this thing from scratch and also the challenge, but we have made sure that we're keeping that data on the user's local device. Now that does provide some really, big engineering challenges, but they're not anything that modern computers, modern networks are incapable of. And we hope, since we're doing everything with free and open source software as well, we're going to be releasing the code to all this stuff. We hope that some of the innovations that we're coming up with will be useful for others as well, whether they're doing, a short messaging service or something else. So.
Absolutely. So I do see here that there is one affordable flat fee. What is that fee and what does that pay for?
Yeah, so the fee is $5,
okay.
$5 a month. And there's a few caveats to that because we have, of course, thought through, that can be a lot of money to some people, especially in the global south, especially if you're hit hard by, this pandemic and you're unemployed or whatever the reason, right? $5 gives you those features we're talking about, those special features, the Cupquakes, the Panquakes, the Lovequakes, the Thunderquake. When you're an anonymous, or I should say a non-registered user or a guest who comes into the network, you can do some limited things, though. You'll be able to, for example, like a Quake, you'll be able to browse through and see content on the network. We're not paywalling this in a way where you can't see anything if you don't subscribe. And that's really important to us as well. We want people to be able to try out the network and really feel comfortable with it before they decide to pay for the subscription. We also, of course, want the network to be a notable record, right? We want people to be able to take those Panquakes, post them in their blog, have their readers click on that from their blog or their website and get some content. We don't want to block it the way Instagram or some of these other things do. So anyway, the subscription is for those features primarily. Also, some other things like editing your profile and so on will only be available to subscribed users. We're going to have something called compassionate accounts, and we're also going to have gifting of accounts. So, for example, we've spoken to a lot of folks, of course, and demoed things for them and shown, some of the things we're working on, the front end, and so on. And one of the things we've heard with feedback is that people are willing to pay $20, maybe even more a month if they can gift, 3 accounts to someone per month. So it's going to be very interesting to see, how many folks are altruistically basically giving accounts to other people. I hope that's a significant part of the network. I really think it will be. I think a lot of folks would be willing to pay, 10, 15, 20 or more, and then just see other people get free access to the network. So that'll be very cool. And again, that flat fee, that is our business model upfront, not spying on you, not selling your data. The important thing here, which I think we're all starting to learn the hard way, is that these free social networks are really selling you. Right? They're selling your profile. They're selling your data. They're trying to monetize surveillance of users. And, we're not going to do that. We're doing flat subscriptions. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I'd love to hear because I know that's something that I've seen through other platforms like Twitch where you can give the subscription to a user's Twitch account. That way they can watch their content and feel like they're just as much as involved as the people who are paying members. So I love that. And I do think that is something that a lot of people would be willing to do. It's a form of mutual aid, really.
Right.
Saying, we want you to be able to be amplified too. So I'm going to pay for your monthly subscription to be on Pancake. And I do think that altruism is really an awesome feature that you guys are considering. So definitely kudos on that.
Yeah. And again, it's partially because we're trying to have a global view here. We're not some Silicon Valley, think tank born, hedge funded, thing. Right. And we really want to have that wider view as well. So yeah, we really hope we can accomplish that. But also, that simple subscription model, I really think we're going to see a lot of these other social networks start moving towards it. As you mentioned with Twitch, but all. Yeah, I know. Instead of being spied on, a lot of people are willing to pay for a subscription, right? But yeah, Twitter, of course, announced some features that you can pay for a few months ago, and we'd like to think that they were watching over our shoulder when they did that, but who knows?
Okay, so let's take a look at the tech here. Let me open this panel. There's the Pancake Technology. Pancake's hybrid marketing and technical white paper will be released with our beta application. We want to share with you what we're doing and how we're doing it right now. So I love that you guys are so open about how it is that you're building Pancake.
Yeah, so one of the things... Sorry.
What will it offer in the beta application?
Yeah, so I just want to say one of the things we're doing is a monthly delivery meeting, and I encourage you folks, your audience, to check out the video we just did. Yeah, exactly. Great. And that really describes everything that's gone on in the last month, development progress, et cetera, et cetera. We have all those, diagrams and so on. We're trying to provide as much information as we can at this point without sort of giving away the secret sauce and all of that. But as I mentioned, we are going to be free and open source software and releasing our stuff under open source licenses. So we're very serious about that. The beta application is exciting. We launched that in tandem with our delivery meeting last weekend. And that basically allows folks to apply to be one of the first 5,000 users in the network. Because our blockchain model is not proof of work, which may be like you've heard about the environmental impact of blockchain and Bitcoin and so on. We have something called proof of authority, where rather than like mining something and having it linked to a coin and doing all that stuff, we actually have a system of trust where we have trusted nodes. And the first 5,000 users in our network will have a very specific trusted role in our network. So because of that, we have to have basically a vetting process, make sure people aren't like bots or trolls and are like genuine people using social media. And right now, anybody who's out there can go and apply to be one of those users. We're going to go through basically and just make sure that they're genuine people. And one of the ways we're doing that is by just basically looking at their social media profile and saying, hey, this is not, this is Sean, not bot Sean. So anyway, we're very excited to be building that and to be getting those users in. We are going to be launching the beta within, hopefully the next year here. The faster we get our donations, which are very, wonderful. We have a great group of donors who have been wonderful in supporting us so far. The faster we're able to get the money to the level that we need it to develop the beta and to finish that development, it'll be incredible. Then we will have another sort of fundraising phase where we can hire a full business team. We're very serious about using the money that we raise through donors on paid staff who are doing amazing things. So that's support staff. We're going to have some moderation teams so we can properly, sort of support our users. We're going to have, obviously developers and so on who are building this amazing product. So yeah. I'm really excited to be at the point where we're launching something amazing here. And if you want to check out this beta application and apply, that would be cool. Of course, you can always donate. And the other thing I guess I should mention, we launched a Substack, or actually a series of Substacks in multiple languages, which is called Talk Liberation. So that's talkliberation.substack.com. And that basically gives you a rundown of big tech news for the week, the stuff that, we should all know, but can't always find because these social networks make it so hard to find stuff sometimes, and news feeds are manipulated and everything else. We sort of break down this important news stories around big tech, censorship, privacy, and security, and we boil that down into shorter snippets so that people can digest it and amplify those stories. And we also have video content linked to that as well. So
very cool. So for those who can't see the video and can only hear it, you can apply to become a Pancake beta team member, one of the first 5,000. You can apply to that by going to pancake.me. That's pancake.me/5000. So if you want to apply to be a beta member, definitely check that out. So how can people, besides becoming a beta member, how can they get involved in the development of Pancake?
Yeah, so as I said, sort of donating and supporting us that way is probably the best way right now. Also, of course, subscribing to the Substack is our way of giving donors, that subscription money is going to go towards this project. So the donors there will get some cool content, right? And we want to make sure that we're having multiple ways of sort of, giving back to the people who have supported us so much up to this point. We don't yet have the ability for developers to, contribute to the open source project. That's something we will roll out. We just want to make sure we have a community for that, and we have the ability to support that and really support the developers who so graciously will give us their time. So yeah, we are though interested. If you're a developer or someone who's really into documentation or graphics or whatever, and you like what you see, you really like the the project as far as we've gotten so far, just reach out to us. We're very friendly, and if we can find a role for you, we will. If not, maybe we'll be in touch in a few months when we get to some other stage of the project. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And of course, amplifying online, we have seen so much, especially recently around the beta. People are really excited. And for someone who's been working on this project for months, and for really the whole team who's been working on this project for months, it's amazing to actually see it. We're getting there, so yeah, if you can amplify us, that'd be cool too.
Awesome. And let's look at some of these other things that you have on here. So you have some goodies. So okay, so these are all like profile pictures, logos, banners, wallpapers. That way you guys can be involved in amplifying Pancake as it's getting ready to launch. When do you guys anticipate that you will be getting ready to launch?
That's always an open question, but we are making progress, right? So what I usually say is, the faster we reach our funding goals, the faster we'll get there. We've moved out of the first phase of our funding, which is starting the business. We're now in that second phase, trying to raise enough money to develop the beta. And when we get the beta out, then we're going to have a 1.1 release. Our 1.1 release will have more users in there, 15,000 users, and then we will open up to the full public. So, we're aiming to do all this within, let's say a 12-month period, but it all depends on funding, as so many things do. And not because we're going out seeking some outside investment to, we are doing this in a real grassroots crowdfunding way, and we want to pay people who can do awesome work for us. So yeah, hopefully, by this time next year, we will all be having this conversation and talking about it on Pancake. That is my real hope. But again, the faster we get there, the faster we get there. So.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so you have already finished phase 1. So you've already raised about $50,000. So now you're trying to raise $117. That way you can create the beta. And then the final round will be phase 3.
That's right.
So you can all see that on the screen. So if you guys want Pancake, that means you've got to get involved. So go to pancake.com. That way you can start donating and help them reach their next goal. That way they can start developing the beta.
And, as I said, if you want the Talk Liberation Substack, that's another way to do it, talkliberation.substack.com, and you'll get that cool content as well. And that money also goes to funding all of this stuff. So.
Okay, that is all awesome. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. All right. Sean, is there anything else that you want to leave our audience with as we're getting ready to end this stream?
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, we're in a world that's filled with problems, and I think your audience is one of the audiences that is very much aware of that and very cognizant of it. It's so infrequent that we're presented with solutions. So I think when we are presented with the solutions, we really need to support them. That's why I got involved in this project. We want to do things differently and really change the face of social media. We want to replace this stuff. That's why I emphasize that replacement, right? So I really hope that your listeners, your viewers will really take that to heart, support us, and come along on this journey, because it should be pretty amazing.
Awesome. Yes, definitely, guys. I highly recommend that you go to pancake.com and check them out. Sean, where can we find you and where can we find Pancake on the internet right now?
Sure. So pancake.com, as you mentioned, we're also obviously on Twitter, pan_Quake. And then we have some other accounts that are related to that. You can find me pretty easily in a Google search, Sean O'Brien. And I also do digital self-defense workshops and some other work around cybersecurity with Yale Privacy Lab. So if you want to look that up, that's cool too.
All awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. You guys definitely go and check out Pancake. I think this is going to be a great platform for all of us, a more safe, secure, and more engaging platform we can, without any censorship, which is fantastic. We are all about free speech here at the Killjoy Guide. So thank you, Sean, for coming to talk to us today. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you so much. It's fun.
Right. And with all that being said, you guys, this has been the Killjoy Guide, the Left Feminist podcast for the 99%. We'll see you Killjoys next time. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another video. See you Killjoys next time.